What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. Today we have a great interview for you. In fact, one that I've been looking forward to for quite some time. Good friend of the channel, Premier Danielle Smith, is stopping by again today after our last chat to talk a little bit more about her comments recently made on Sean Newman's podcast about doubling Alberta's population, amongst other things that are concerning Albertans in the province right now. Most people have said that as Twitter has unrolled and people have had their chance to really say what they think about Danielle's claims as to doubling Alberta's population, we sit down today to set the record straight as to why some people may have been skeptical and jumped the gun on that claim, amongst what is going to happen should Justin Trudeau claim his seat again or hold the country hostage with Quebec going into the next federal election. All right, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let's bring in the guest of the hour, Madam Premier Danielle Smith. Danielle, welcome back to The Fringe. It's great to see you back on the show.
My pleasure. Nice to see you.
Great. I wanted to start this interview because Sean Newman has a wonderful podcast, and I know there's been a lot of, we'll say, controversy lately, as you recently sat on the show. There was a statement made, and a lot of your supporters, I guess you could say, or politically influenced supporters have taken to Twitter. They've drummed up, I think, what was a very quick misconception of the words that were used. And I wanted to bring you on the show to clarify those things, because there was a statement made during that interview that you wanted to double Alberta's population by 2050, I believe. Now, I guess what struck a lot of people on a nerve on that is that despite the claims that you've had against Justin Trudeau's terrible immigration policies and the crime that it's brought to the country, and the homes that aren't available, the jobs that aren't available for everybody, I think a lot of people jumped the gun, so to speak, on what you meant by that comment, thinking that you were endorsing those immigration policies for Alberta. So I kind of wanted to bring you on the show to maybe clarify what you meant by that statement.
Sure. I think I talked to Sean back in January, and I aspirationally, I think where I'm coming from is we need a larger population to have the political clout that Quebec has. That's sort of the thinking. So Quebec is about 9 million population. That's sort of where, well, wouldn't it be nice if we were actually a higher population than them, and then we would actually be able to control some of the discussion and policy at the federal level. So the fact of the matter is that when you do have people come into your province, you have to manage it at a rate that is reasonable. And so what we saw in 2023 is, I think we did pretty well at being able to manage an elevated amount of population. It was 200,000. And you have to remember, we'd had 13 quarters of out-migration. We had people, SCBC, writing news stories that no one wanted to come to Alberta. And yet our oil and gas revenues had turned around. We had big projects being announced, and we needed to do something to let people know that, hey, we need a workforce here because we're getting our groove back. And it worked. I mean, we created 100,000 jobs in that period of time. Most of them were private sector. I think we're responsible for 90% of the private sector job growth. And that's when immigration works, because people come, they get a job, they're paying taxes, and they're paying enough to be able to cover their expenses. We also had another historic circumstance with the war in Ukraine, and 70,000 Ukrainian evacuees choosing Alberta as their home. And I think that when you have that kind of war-torn environment, Albertans do step up. They stepped up in a big way because we have a Ukrainian diaspora population that we're able to help people get settled, and we're able to make sure that they got language learning and jobs. And so I think that was also reasonably successful as well. But you can see the strain now. That you can see that affordable housing is not as affordable. We still have a good affordable housing story to tell in Edmonton and Red Deer, two of the most affordable housing markets in all of North America. But we're seeing it in Calgary. We're seeing it specifically in rents that are going up. That's where a lot of newcomers would end up putting pressure on the upward cost of housing. We're seeing our schools bursting at the seams. I spoke with Calgary Board of Education. They told me they went from about an 85% utilization of their schools to 96% utilization of their schools. I've gone to different communities where they tell me that they have all-season campgrounds where people are living in campgrounds because they can't find local housing. My social services minister tells me increasingly at shelter spaces, we're seeing newcomers there because they just can't find homes. And that's not good for anyone. If you're at a point where you don't have the ability to provide a job and a place to live and a classroom where your kids can get the attention that they deserve, and be able to provide that kind of support, you're moving too fast. And that's what we discovered, that for maybe 1 year, we were able to manage a surge in that kind of population. But at the moment, there's just too much pressure. And we have done our part in Alberta with settling 70,000 Ukrainians. We certainly cannot absorb another 28,000 people who don't have jobs, don't have English language learning, need income supports, need a place to live. At this moment, we're full, and we have to make sure that the federal government respects us on that. We need a level of immigration that we can manage.
Certainly. So I think it's a safe bet to say that when you say we want to double Alberta's population by 2050, that essentially we're saying that provided we have the homes, provided we have the jobs, and provided people are contributing to our economy. Is that fair?
We have to keep up, and maybe 2050 is not the right target. Maybe you get there by 2075. Maybe you get there by 2100. I think we've always seen that there is a reasonable amount of immigration that comes into our province because we do have the jobs. We do have a culture that people want to take part in. We value freedom. We value family, faith, community. We have free enterprise. We're philanthropic. That this is a wonderful place to live, and so we have a lot of like minds that want to move here, and that will always be the case. But it doesn't help anybody if you've got so many people coming into the province that it's affecting our affordability, affecting our ability to keep up, and we're not able to integrate those newcomers coming in. That I think is the position that we find ourselves in right now.
Great. Okay. Well, while you're on that subject, and again, that definitely I think will clear a lot of people's perceptions of what was meant by that, and maybe regain some trust where it was lost. But one place with Albertans, at least what I see on this show, with the vast majority of Albertans who watch this show, when it comes to trust, I wanted to talk a little bit about the AGM meeting that's coming up, and a lot of I guess I've seen reporting from the counter signal that there were lists going out paying people to come and negatively vote in that meeting. What is it that Alberta can do moving forward, do you feel, to maybe solidify our elections? I know we've talked about how we won't be bringing in digital machines to watch votes, that it's always going to be paper ballots. But when it comes to sabotage for these kind of meetings or these kind of situations where leadership can be affected, is there anything that your office has discussed that can maybe solidify a little more, I guess, faith that our elections are fair and free?
Look, I think that our members are reacting to the idea that there's a small group of people trying to sign up socialists to come and take over their party, and they are not happy about it. And so I think what you're seeing is people are going to come and they're going to debate the policy in a robust way, give us some new direction, and they're going to make sure that that does not reflect the outcome of the AGM. I think it's disappointing that would happen because these party processes are really meant for members. But I think that it actually has had the opposite reaction, that now we're seeing more and more people signing up because they want to come and they want to make sure that the socialists don't take over our party. So I think that's really positive. What I would say is that we also heard from the members. I mean, this is part of the reason I like to do the town halls, is that we had a number of policies that were passed in 22 and 2023. I wanted to give an update to people on where we found ourselves on implementing those. Got some more feedback on the things that members like, things that they don't like. And when you get that, you can recalibrate a bit. That's part of the reason why it's important to get out from outside, from under the dome, and talk to real people. So at the AGM, I will have my keynote speech. I'll also have an accountability session. There'll be a bear pit session with our ministers, but there'll also be an accountability session with me where I can go through policy by policy so that members know that we take that work seriously. And then we'll have another robust policy debate. So I feel pretty good about where we find ourselves as a party. Our members, though, last year also said that they wanted to go back to paper ballots. They just they want to have confidence in the system. We have a very simple system on how you vote in municipal and provincial elections. And so we have ended the tabulators at the municipal level. So the next municipal elections will be done the old-fashioned way. And then when we bring through our changes to the Provincial Elections Act, we're looking at doing the same thing as well. And I hope that restores some confidence for people.
Absolutely. Well, that's the first I've heard about the municipal level, and I think that's fantastic. I definitely think that's going to raise a little bit of voter confidence to maybe turn out and vote in those elections. One thing I wanted to backpedal on a little bit was you'd mentioned Quebec earlier, and that
Yeah.
we wanted to have some power when it comes to populations similar to Quebec. I know recently Jagmeet Singh had ended his deal with Justin Trudeau, essentially. What they don't call a coalition, but let's be honest, it's it guy walks like a duck, talks like a duck. We've now seen Quebec step up to say, hey, we're not signing anything, but we're going to wave that carrot on the stick to maybe get a little bit more negotiating power, which has a lot of Albertans nervous because essentially the country once again is being held hostage at a federal level. Now, should any deals go through, or should Justin Trudeau succeed, though it's highly unlikely in another election, a lot of Albertans are asking, we've talked about sovereignty acts, we've talked about how, a lot of people sat on the whole Alberta exit of confederation, but where would Alberta stand if Justin Trudeau were to gain another leadership vote, and what does that mean for Albertans moving forward to protect their way of life, their
Mhm.
future?
Well, I can tell you a couple of things. I mean, I have a lot of common cause with the other premiers because the premiers are duly elected and they are elected to uphold the division of powers that they are given under our constitution. So whenever Premier Legault leads on something, we don't always agree on every issue, but oftentimes we find that we're in sync. But that's a very different story than the Bloc Québécois. The Bloc Québécois wants to break the country up, and they want to do so with maximum leverage by threatening separation so that they can extract dollars from the rest of the country and Alberta in particular, at the same time as being the most hostile to the development of our resources, not only in Alberta, but in their own province. And so that is why I think a Bloc Liberal coalition, if it's even possible, would be even worse than an NDP Liberal coalition, which is what we've had to endure for the last number of years. So I have said this Liberal Party, they do not have a mandate from the people to negotiate with separatists and to be extorted in order to placate them. And they should hold an early election rather than go down that pathway. I think we need an election right now. I mean, if the NDP has lost confidence in this government, we already know the Conservatives have lost confidence in them. I don't put much stock in the Bloc propping them up, especially since they don't give a rip about the rest of the country, and he's pretty frank and straightforward in saying so. I think it's time to get either a new mandate because of a new election, or to move on to some other new government so that we can actually get this country functioning as it should.
Great. It sounds great. Last question as we wrap up here, and I know this is a little unexpected, but I do have to ask because I'm hoping maybe we get an exclusive on this interview. With the with the surplus that we've seen in
Hmm.
Alberta, and again, you'd mentioned how great things like oil and gas is coming back in, jobs are coming back in. We're starting to see growth in Alberta. I know at one point you'd mentioned possible tax cuts on the way and said those were coming down the line at some point. Is there anything you can give us today on this interview that might indicate where we're at in that stage?
Well, look, I mean, part of what we're doing is going through each department and looking at ways to improve efficiencies, to use technology so that we can give better service, so that we can find ways to improve performance without increasing money, find ways to take money from low priority areas and move them to the high priority areas. And one of the high priority areas that we have is delivering on a $1.4 billion tax cut. So we'll go through this process every year because I think it's a responsible thing to do, to just make sure that the programs are serving their need. And I'm really hopeful that we'll be able to accelerate those tax cuts in the January when we bring the budget down in February. So we're making some pretty good progress. So I'm feeling pretty confident about it. But I want to just finish that work, and then people will see what it looks like in February. Sorry, I know you wanted the scoop, but just know
That's
we're
okay.
very committed. We're very committed to making sure that that we deliver on that sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. I figured that would be the answer, but we have to push anyways because, hey, if we can break that, that's better than anything. Danielle, thank you again for coming on the show. And thanks for clearing up the air because I know, again, Albertans, especially, again, my viewers champion the work that you're doing. I think personally, and again, this is my opinion, I think you're the greatest premier that we've seen since Ralph Klein. I think you're doing a fantastic job. I look forward to seeing what you bring forward in the new year and after the AGM. And again, I keep up the great work. I think you're doing a great job. Hopefully, we can have you back on to talk again
You
later.
bet. Thanks, Derek.
Thanks so much. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Straight from the Premier's mouth, this is what she meant when she talked about doubling Alberta's population, as well as what she thinks about the federal government moving forward with Quebec. I think this was a great interview. My many thanks to Danielle Smith and her people for coming onto the channel today and making this interview possible. If you guys enjoyed this video, I sure hope it has earned your subscription. If it's your first time here, make sure to click that subscribe button down below. Make sure to hit the bell for notifications. Leave a thumbs up and a comment as well. It helps get the video out there. It helps people be informed that this is something something worth watching, again, if you enjoyed it and feel so inclined, it costs you nothing. It takes 2 seconds. Do all that usual YouTube stuff. And while you're at it, make sure to put down a note to join me live here on the channel each and every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe, where not only myself, but the beautiful Mrs. Fringe joins us live at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central every Friday night here on the channel, going over everything that happened this week in politics, everything coming up in the week ahead, and some back and forth within our community. I always look forward to chatting with you guys inside of those streams to hear what you have to say outside of making these videos, and we all look forward to chatting with you each and every Friday night here on the channel. I hope you guys enjoyed this interview and video and have yourselves a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.